Let's be honest. When you hear the word Seattle sound, your brain probably jumps straight to grunge, right? But there was one band that was always so much more than that label. They built this sonic world that was just heavier, smarter, and way more complex than almost anyone else around them. Okay, let's get into the story of Soundgarden. And hey, don't just take my word for it. This is from Jonathan Poneman, the guy who co-founded Sub Pop Records. You know, the label that basically lit the fuse for the entire Seattle scene. From the very beginning, the people who really mattered, the ones on the ground floor, they knew Soundgarden was something else entirely.
So what was it that made them so different? Well, it really comes down to this incredible fusion. Think about it. On one side, you have the raw, frantic, visceral energy of hardcore punk. And on the other, you've got the heavy, sludgy, monolithic weight of 70s heavy metal bands like Black Sabbath. Soundgarden? They weren't on either side. They were the bridge connecting these two worlds into something brand new.
So our story really kicks off in Seattle, back in 1984. This is where the architects of this whole new sound started laying the foundation, piece by piece.
And you know, their name itself is just perfect. It's not made up. They got it from a real place in Seattle called a Soundgarden. It's this wild art installation with these huge pipes that make these eerie, unpredictable sounds when the wind blows through them. I mean, could there be a better metaphor for their music? This blend of something industrial and powerful with something totally organic and kind of haunting.
The band itself took a minute to lock into its final form. At first, Chris Cornell was actually the singer and the drummer, if you can believe that. But once they got a dedicated drummer, it freed him up to become one of the most iconic frontmen in rock history. And the real turning point, the secret sauce, was when Matt Cameron joined in '86. His drumming wasn't just hitting things, it was complex, dynamic, and it became the engine for everything that came next.
All right, part 2. This is where things really start to take off. This is the story of how Soundgarden went from this underground Seattle secret to an absolute global force. This was the climb.
Now this right here is a huge deal, and it's something people often forget. Back in the late 80s, the indie world and the major label world were like oil and water. By signing with a major label, Soundgarden didn't just take a risk, they kicked the door down for their entire scene. They proved you could get on a major label without selling out, and they basically paved the way for Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and everyone else to follow.
And that path they blazed, it led directly to this. Their 1994 masterpiece, Superunknown. The album didn't just do well, it debuted at #1 on the Billboard charts and sold 9 million copies. That's not just a successful album, that's a cultural earthquake.
But here's the thing, and this is what makes Soundgarden so damn special. Even when they were selling millions of records, they never ever dumbed down their music. Mainstream rock radio pretty much runs on a simple, steady 4/4 beat. Soundgarden gave them Spoon Man, a monster hit built on a weird, lurching 7/4 time signature. They were hiding these incredibly complex, progressive ideas in plain sight, and millions of people absolutely loved it.
But being at the absolute peak of the music world, well, it comes with the price. The constant pressure, the endless touring, the creative arguments, it all started to build up. This is where the story takes a turn. Part 3, Fracture, Fatigue, and Fallout.
It just begs the question, right? In 1997, you're one of the biggest bands in the world, you have everything at your feet. Why would you just stop?
Well, it wasn't one single thing, it was more like a death by 1,000 cuts. The guys were pulling in different creative directions. They were completely burned out from the whole music industry machine. And it all just exploded at a final disastrous show in Hawaii. Equipment was failing, tempers were flaring, and their bassist, Ben Shepherd, just walked off stage. 2 months later, the band announced they were done.
And for 13 years, that was it. End of story. But then, something nobody really expected happened. A reunion that felt less like a nostalgia trip and more like unfinished business. Part 4, a triumphant second coming. During that long break, everyone stayed busy. Cornell formed Audioslave, Matt Cameron actually joined Pearl Jam. It seemed like Soundgarden was firmly in the past. Then, out of nowhere, on New Year's Day 2010, Chris Cornell sends out a simple tweet saying the band was back. And this wasn't just for a tour. It led to their fantastic 2012 comeback album, King Animal. And here's the crazy part. You know how comeback albums can be kind of hit or miss? This one was a home run. Critics were blown away, saying it was this surprisingly strong reunion. They all noticed that the band's unique chemistry, that magic that made them special, it was all still there. It was like they hadn't missed a beat.
The reunion honestly felt like a new beginning, a chance to write a final, amazing chapter to their story. But tragically, that chapter was cut short, leaving us with a legacy that's both incredible and just heartbreaking.
This is tough to look at. This is the set list from their final concert in Detroit, May 17, 2017. Just hours after this show, Chris Cornell took his own life. And in one of those details that's just too chilling to be a coincidence, the very last notes of music the band ever played together on stage was a piece of a Led Zeppelin song, In My Time of Dying.
What came next was a really difficult time, filled with grief and, unfortunately, legal fights over the final demos Chris had been working on with the band. But thankfully, in 2023, an agreement was finally reached, and what that means is that the path is now clear for the surviving members to finish and release one last Soundgarden album.
Their induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2025 was a long time coming, and the celebration showed just how deep their influence runs. Look at the people who came out to pay tribute. Everyone from their Seattle brothers in Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains to rock royalty like Nancy Wilson and even Chris's own daughter, Toni Cornell. Their music clearly touched so many people.
So, when you put it all together, they were pioneers who smashed through industry walls. They were musical geniuses who topped the charts. A band that came back from a decade-long breakup only to face an unthinkable tragedy. And as we wait for what will be their final album, it leaves us with a really big question. What will be the ultimate legacy of the band that truly was everything rock and roll should be?